A name came to you, you saw the title of this, and before you had finished reading it, a name arrived, or a face, or a particular afternoon that you have not thought about deliberately in years, but that has never once left. You may have felt something tighten in your chest when it came. That is the door. And I want you to know, before we go one step further, that I understand exactly why you have walked past it, possibly for decades, possibly every day, because opening that door feels like saying it was all right. It feels like standing up in a courtroom where you were the only witness and withdrawing your own testimony. It feels like letting them off. It feels like the last thing you still have, the one thing you kept, being taken away as well. So let me say this at the very beginning, plainly, and I will say it again several times before we are finished, because it is the thing people most need to hear and the thing they most quickly forget. It was not all right. Whatever it was not all right. And nothing I say in the next 40 minutes is going to suggest otherwise. Forgiveness is not a verdict on what happened. It is not an opinion about their behavior. It does not go in the record. Forgiveness is not a favor you do for them. Most of the time, they will never know you did it. Some of them are not alive to know. A great many of them have not thought about it in 20 years, which is very often the most painful part of the whole business, and we will come to that. So if it is not for them, what is it? It is for you. It is entirely and unashamedly for you. It is an act of freedom, and you are the one who benefits, and that is the only reason to do it. Now, I used to ask people a question when they came to me carrying something like this. And it is a rude question, and I am going to ask you as well, and I would like you to answer it honestly rather than politely. Would you rather be right, or would you rather be happy because you are right? Let me say that clearly. In all likelihood, you are completely right. You could lay out the case, and any reasonable person would agree with you. And you have probably rehearsed it so many times that you could deliver it without notes. You are right, and you are also not free. And at some point, a person has to decide which of those two matters more to them. Because in this particular situation, you may not get both. That is what we are going to work through today. Not quickly, and not by skipping anything. We are going to do the anger first, because you cannot forgive from underneath unexpressed anger, and I would never ask you to try. And then, toward the end, we are going to come to the door that this is actually about, which may not be the one you thought of when the title appeared. Let us begin. Before we go anywhere near what forgiveness is, I want to spend time on what it is not, because I have watched people refuse to forgive for 30 years, and in nearly every case they were refusing something that nobody was asking them to do. They were declining a thing I would decline too. So let us clear 4 of them out of the way. The first, forgiveness is not condoning. You do not have to approve of what was done. You do not have to decide it was understandable or acceptable or a product of the times or not really that bad when you look at the whole picture. You can forgive somebody and still hold permanently and without apology that what they did was wrong. I know this from the inside. My own childhood was violent, and there was sexual abuse in it, and I was starved of affection in a way that shaped everything about the woman I became. I would not be where I am today if I had not forgiven the people who hurt me. But forgiving them never once meant I thought it was fine. It is not the same thing as condoning their behavior. And anybody who tells you otherwise has not understood the thing they are recommending. What it means in practice is that I can look at all of that now and say, yes, that happened. That is something that happened. And then I can add the sentence that took me years to earn. I do not live there anymore. That is what forgiveness bought me, not a change of opinion about them. An address. The second thing, forgiveness is not reconciliation. This confusion has kept more people trapped than any other, and it has kept some people in genuine danger. You do not have to see them. You do not have to speak to them. You do not have to send a message, or explain yourself, or attend the family gathering, or answer the telephone, or ever let that person within 100 miles of your life again. Some people should not be let back in. I want to be extremely clear about that. Some doors should stay closed and locked, and keeping them locked is not a failure of forgiveness. It is good sense, and it is self-respect. And the two things are entirely compatible. You can release somebody completely and never see their face again. In fact, that is how it usually goes. The work is not out there with them. The work is in here with the thing you have been carrying on their behalf. The third, forgiveness is not forgetting, and it is not a ruling that you were wrong to be hurt. Nobody is asking you to lose the memory. You could not if you tried, and it would not be healthy if you could. Your memory is not the problem. What you do with it at 2 in the morning is the problem. And you were not wrong to be hurt. You were hurt because something happened that hurts people. That is not a weakness in you, and it never was. And the fourth, which I feel strongly about, forgiveness is not a schedule. Nobody gets to tell you that you should have been over this by now. People will say it. They say it because your pain is inconvenient to them, or because they do not know what else to say. It has been years, they say. You are still on about that. Ignore them. This takes as long as it takes, and it takes different lengths for different injuries. And a thing that took 10 seconds to do can take 20 years to put down. There is no shame in that whatsoever. So having cleared all of that away, what is it actually? It is this. Forgiveness is giving up the hurtful feelings and simply letting the whole thing go. That is all. It is not a ceremony, and it is not a statement issued to anybody. It is the act of setting down something heavy so that your hands are free for something else. And I want you to notice the phrase, giving up the hurtful feelings, not giving up the truth of what happened. The feelings, the ones that live in you and only in you, and that nobody else has to carry. Now let me tell you what the alternative costs, because we do not talk about this honestly enough. A state of unforgiveness destroys something inside the person holding it, not the person it is aimed at. The person holding it, not forgiving somebody, does not harm them in the slightest. It does not reach them. There is no mechanism by which your resentment travels across a city and lands on somebody's dinner table. They are asleep. That is the thing I most want you to sit with. At 2 in the morning, when you are lying there with your heart going and the whole conversation running again, and you are saying the thing you should have said, and they are answering, and you are saying the better thing after that, they are asleep. And they have been asleep every night for years while you have done this. And when they wake up, they will think about their own concerns, and you will not be among them. So the issues are not theirs. The issues are yours. That sounds harsh, and it is actually the most hopeful sentence in this entire video, and I will tell you why. Because if it were theirs, you would be waiting. You would be waiting for an apology that is not coming, or an admission that will never be made, or a phone call from somebody who does not believe they did anything, and you would wait for the rest of your life, and you would die waiting, and a great many people do. But it is yours, which means it is in a room you have the key to. Say this with me now. I am willing to be free of this. Notice I did not ask you to forgive anybody yet. I asked whether you are willing to be free. That is a much smaller thing, and it is all we need to begin again. I am willing to be free of this. Now, there is a reason you have held on to this for so long, and I want to be very respectful about it, because it is not stubbornness and it is not weakness. It is that the resentment has been doing a job for you. Nobody carries something for 20 years for no reason. I want you to understand that about yourself, because most people who cannot forgive have decided somewhere along the way that this proves something bad about them, that they are bitter, that they are not spiritual enough, that everybody else manages it and they cannot. None of that is true. You are holding on because holding on is paying you something. And until you know what the payment is, you cannot make a real decision about whether you still want it. So let us look at what it pays. The first thing, and the biggest, is evidence. As long as you hold the resentment, the record stands. It happened, it mattered, it was as bad as you remember. Somebody, somewhere, is still carrying the file, and that somebody is you. And so letting go feels like destroying the evidence. It feels like agreeing that it was nothing, particularly if nobody believed you at the time, particularly if you were told you were exaggerating or being dramatic or that it was not how you remember. If you were not believed, then your resentment has been doing the work of a witness. It has been the only thing insisting that this was real. I want you to hear this clearly. Putting it down does not unmake it. The event is not held in place by your feelings about it. It happened whether you are angry today or not. It will have happened for the rest of time. Your suffering is not what keeps it true. You are allowed to stop being the witness. The trial is over. There was never going to be a verdict. The second payment is being right. We all have opinions about who was right and who was wrong according to our own perception of things. And we can all find ways to justify our feelings endlessly and very persuasively because we have been building the case for years and we have had no opposing counsel. And being right feels like strength. It feels like the one solid thing in the whole mess. But look at what it costs. We want to punish the other person for what they did to us. And so what do? We run the story over and over again in our own minds. Do you see what has happened there? The punishment is being administered, but it is being administered in your head, to your nervous system, in your evenings, on your holidays, in the middle of your daughter's wedding. They are not receiving any of it. It is foolish for us to punish ourselves in the present because somebody hurt us in the past. When you say it out loud like that, in plain words, most people flinch a little because it is so obviously absurd and so exactly what we are doing. The third payment is identity. If you have been the person this happened to for long enough, then it is not just a thing that occurred. It has become part of the furniture. People know it about you. It explains things. It accounts for why certain things are difficult for you. And some of those explanations are entirely accurate. And so laying it down raises a question that is genuinely frightening. Who am I without it? That is not a small question, and I will not pretend it is. But I will say that the answer is always larger than people expect. You are not a container for what was done to you. You never were. You are what is left when that is set down. And there is a great deal left, and most people have never met it. The fourth payment, and this is the one nobody sees coming, is that the grudge protects you from grief. Anger is active. Anger has energy in it. It gives you something to do with your hands. Underneath the anger, very often, is simply sadness. The plain, quiet, terrible loss of a childhood you did not get. A parent who was not what a parent is meant to be. Years you cannot have back. A person you loved who turned out to be someone else. And the grudge stands between you and that. It has been standing there for years, quite loyally, keeping the sadness at a distance. So when I ask you to put down the anger, part of you knows precisely what is behind it, and that part is not being difficult. It is being careful. If that is you, then go gently and let the sadness come when it comes, and do not be frightened by it. Grief is not a setback. Grief is what forgiveness actually feels like from the inside on the first few days. Now, there's an expression I learned many years ago from Alcoholics Anonymous, and I have always loved it because it is such an accurate description. Getting off the pity pot. When you are sitting on the pity pot, you are a helpless person. You have no power at all. Everything is being done to you, and there is nothing available to you. And there is a kind of comfort in that, because if nothing is available, then nothing is required. And to have any power at all, you have to stand up on your own 2 feet and take responsibility. Now, let me be careful, because responsibility is a word that gets misused terribly in this context. I am not saying you are responsible for what happened. Some of you were children. Some of you were in situations that no person should ever be in, and nothing about that was yours. Responsibility here means only one thing. It is your ability to respond. It is the acknowledgement that you are alive and here, and that there is a move available to you from where you are standing. Blame gives your power away. Blame looks outward and says, they did this, and therefore only they can undo it. And so you wait for somebody who is not coming. Responsibility takes the power back. It says, this was done to me, and I am the one who gets to decide what happens next. So let me give you some questions to sit with. Do not rush them. If you only get through 2 of them today, that is a good day's work. Who am I still punishing? What am I still trying to prove, and to whom? What would I have to feel if I put this down? Am I waiting for an apology? And if it never comes, and it very likely never will, how long am I prepared to wait? Is this the only way I know how to respond to what happened? And the last one, which is the hardest, is this what I want for the rest of my life? Because that is the actual question. Not whether they deserve forgiveness. They may not. That is genuinely not the point, and it never was. The question is whether you intend to carry this into your 60s and your 70s, and whether you want it in the room on the last day. Say this with me: I would rather be happy than right. Say it again, and notice that something in you objects, and let it object. I would rather be happy than right. Now, before we go anywhere near forgiving anybody, there is a step that people skip. And skipping it is the single most common reason that forgiveness fails and people conclude it does not work. You cannot forgive from underneath unexpressed anger. I want to say that again because it is the hinge of this entire video. If you take one practical thing away from the next 40 minutes, take this. The feeling has to move before it can be released. And what most people do, particularly people who have been anywhere near spiritual teaching, is skip straight to the letting go. They stand there with 40 years of unexpressed rage sitting in their chest, and they say, I forgive you, in a calm voice, and they mean it sincerely. And nothing happens. And then they decide they must be doing it wrong, or that they are not spiritual enough, or that forgiveness is a nice idea that does not work on real injuries. That is not what happened. What happened is that they tried to release something they had not yet allowed themselves to feel. You cannot put down what you are still holding with a clenched hand. And you cannot unclench a hand you have never looked at. So let us talk about anger, honestly, because a great many of you were taught that it is a bad emotion and that good people do not have it. Anger is an honest emotion. That is the first thing. It is not a character flaw. It is information, and it is usually accurate information. And here is what happens to it. When it is not expressed outwardly, it gets processed inwardly in the body, and it very often develops into some dysfunction or dis-ease of some sort. It does not evaporate. That is the mistake. People believe that if they do not express it, it goes away. It does not go away. It goes down, and it comes out sideways as bitterness, which is anger that has aged, as resentment, which is anger with nowhere to go, as sarcasm, as that flat, tired, grayish feeling that so many people live inside and call their personality, and very often as depression. I want to say something about depression here, carefully, and I am speaking from what I have observed rather than as a doctor. If you are in a serious depression, please do work with somebody qualified This is not instead of that. But what I have seen again and again is this. Depression is very often anger turned inward. And more specifically, it is anger that you did not feel you had the right to have. You are not allowed to be angry at your mother because she was ill. You are not allowed to be angry at your father because he is dead now. You are not allowed to be angry at your husband because he provides. You are not allowed to be angry at the person who hurt you because everybody says they had a hard life themselves. And so you are angry, and you have judged the anger as forbidden, and it has nowhere to go. And that stuck, forbidden anger settles into that heavy, flattened state where nothing seems worth doing. Now, I have a way of putting this that people have always remembered. So let me put it that way. I do not care how spiritual you are. You still have to wash your dishes. You cannot let the sink pile up for 3 weeks and then say, oh, but I am very metaphysical. The dishes are still there. They will still be there next Thursday, and the kitchen will smell. It is exactly the same with feelings. If you want a mind that flows freely, you have to clean up your inner mental dirty dishes. There is no arrangement available where you skip that part. So, how do we let it out? The best way, when it is possible, is to say it to the person directly. To sit down and say, I am angry with you because of this. A great many situations can be resolved simply by somebody finally saying the thing out loud in a room with the other person in it. But that is often not possible. They may be dead, they may be dangerous, they may deny it entirely and leave you worse off than before. They may be somebody you have decided, quite rightly, never to be in a room with again. So the second best way, and honestly for many people the better way, is to say it to the mirror. Here is how you do it. Find yourself a place where you feel safe and where you will not be interrupted. That matters. Do not do this when somebody might walk in. Look into your own eyes. And if you cannot manage the eyes, and many people cannot at first, then look at your mouth or your nose. That is perfectly acceptable. You will get to the eyes eventually. Now see the person. Bring them into the mirror with you. Remember the moment. Let yourself feel the anger actually come up, rather than describing it from a distance. And then tell them out loud, I am angry at you because you did this. I am hurt because you did this. I was so frightened because you did this. Say the specific thing, not the summary, not the version you tell people. The actual thing in the actual words, including the words you were not allowed to say at the time. And do not tidy it. Do not be fair to them while you are doing it. There will be time for fairness later, and this is not that part. Get all of it out. If you want to express it physically, then get some pillows and hit them. Do not be afraid to let the anger take its natural course. You have kept it bottled up long enough, and there is no need for guilt or shame about any of it. Remember that feelings are simply thoughts in action. They serve a purpose, and when you let them out of your mind and your body, you make space inside for something else to live there. Now, there are other ways, and different things work for different people. So use whatever you will actually do. You can scream into a pillow. One man at a seminar of mine used an egg timer for this. He gave himself 10 full minutes to let out everything he had about his father. And after 5 minutes, he was completely exhausted. And he kept glancing at the timer, realizing he still had minutes to go. I have always liked that story because it tells you something true. The anger you have been terrified of for 40 years is often smaller than you think once it is actually let out. It is enormous while it is compressed. It runs out surprisingly fast in the open air. You can beat the bed. I used to do a great deal of that and made a considerable amount of noise doing it. I cannot anymore because my dogs become frightened and think I am angry at them. So now I scream in the car with the windows rolled up, which is extremely effective and nobody knows, Or I go out and dig a hole in the garden, which is also extremely effective, and you get a hole. You can write a hate letter, every word of it. Nothing held back. No fairness, no consideration for how it would sound if anybody read it. And then you burn it. That is the important part. It was never a letter to send. You can go and hit balls at a driving range, one after another after another. You can swim. You can run around the block until you cannot run anymore. You can write or draw the feelings with your non-dominant hand, which sounds strange and which opens something in people that words often cannot. Whatever you choose, do something physical and do it safely. Do not be reckless, and do not put yourself or anybody else in any danger. Nobody gets hurt in this, including you. Now, one boundary, and it matters. Anger, like any emotion that genuinely surfaces, only lasts a few minutes. That is worth knowing, because there are approaches that get you into your anger and then keep you immersed in it for a very long time. And I think that often does more harm than good. You are not trying to live in there. You are trying to let something pass through. There is a real difference between releasing and rehashing. Releasing has an end. Rehashing is the thing you have already been doing at 2 in the morning for years, and doing it louder does not make it release. So give it its few minutes. Let it be as loud and as unfair as it needs to be. And then stop and sit down and breathe. And do not judge the feelings while they are happening. That is the thing that pushes them back down again. Do not stand over yourself, observing, thinking, this is ugly, I should not be like this. Feelings are not ugly. They are simply late. Say these with me now. It is safe for me to feel. I release these feelings with ease. And once more, it is safe for me to feel, and it is safe for me to let go. Now, the room is clear, and now the thing we actually came here for becomes possible. Now, here is the part that must not be skipped, because if you stop at the anger, you have not healed anything. When you have finished expressing it, you do your best to release them. And if you cannot get to the releasing, then the whole exercise simply becomes a negative affirmation. You have spent 20 minutes rehearsing the injury in high definition with feeling out loud and then gone to bed. That is not healing. That is practice. There is a real difference between releasing and rehashing old angers, and the difference is entirely in what you do in the last 2 minutes. So here are the words. I am going to say them slowly, and I would like you to say them with me. And it does not matter at all whether you feel them yet. Say them to the person you have been thinking about since the beginning. That situation is over. That is in the past now. I do not approve of what you did, and I understand that you were doing the best you could with the knowledge and the understanding that you had at that time. I am done with this. I release you, and I let you go. You are free, and I am free. Now, sit for a moment. Do not rush on. And let me say something about that middle line, because it is the one people choke on. And they are right to examine it rather than swallowing it. You were doing the best you could with the understanding you had. That is not a compliment to them. Please do not hear it as one. It is not saying they did well. It is not saying their best was good enough, because in a great many cases their best was nowhere near good enough and people were badly harmed by it. It is a description of a limit. It says that a person operating with that much fear and that much damage and that little awareness produced what such a person produces. It removes the idea that they had a better version available and deliberately withheld it from you. That is the thought that keeps people awake. Not what was done, but the belief that they could have chosen otherwise and chose this. Mostly they could not. Mostly they were repeating exactly what had been done to them without ever once examining it, because nobody had suggested to them that a person could examine such a thing. And this is why I have always suggested, when it is possible, that people find out about their parents' childhoods. If they are still living, you can ask them, what was it like when you were growing up? What was love like in your family? How did your parents punish you? What were you afraid of? I did this myself. I looked into my own parents' childhoods as much as I could. And I began to understand how they had been treated, and I realized that given how they were brought up, they could not really have done anything very differently. My stepfather had been abused in his own home, and he continued it. My mother had been raised to believe that the man was always right and that you stood by and allowed it. That did not excuse a single thing. Let me be very clear about that. It explained it. And explanation is not absolution, but explanation is what makes release possible, because it converts a monster into a person, and you can put down a person. And if you cannot find any of that out, or if you do not want to, that is all right too. You do not need their history to release them. It simply makes it easier for some people. Now, some practical notes, because this rarely works in one go. You may need to do this several times before you truly feel the anger has gone. That is completely normal, and it is not a sign of failure. Very often what happens is that you release it and you feel wonderfully light for about 4 days, and then you see something or somebody says something and it is all back, and you think, well, that was useless. It was not useless. What is happening is that you are working in layers. You clear one, and you stand on that for a while and think you have finished, and then the next layer underneath becomes visible, and it only became visible because you cleared the one above it. That is progress. That is precisely what progress looks like, and it feels almost identical to failure, which is why so many people stop. You can work on one issue or several. Do what feels right for you, and do not let anybody, including me, tell you the order. And I want to repeat something from earlier, because some of you have joined partway through and some of you will have been braced against this whole thing. Releasing them does not mean seeing them. You never have to speak to that person again. You never have to send a message or explain what you have done or give them the satisfaction of knowing you thought about them at all. This is a private act conducted in your own house for your own benefit. If somebody is dangerous to you, stay away from them and release them from a very safe distance. Those two things do not conflict in the slightest. Now, one more thing before the visualization. For those of you whose situation involves having lost something. Money, a house, an inheritance, years. An opportunity somebody took from you. Here is what I have come to believe, and it has settled a great deal of resentment in me over the years. Nobody can take from you anything that is rightfully yours. If it belongs to you, it will come back to you at the right time in some form, and often not the form you expected. And if it does not come back, then it was not meant to be yours, however unjust that feels from where you are standing. I know that is not satisfying to somebody who was genuinely robbed. But consider the alternative, which is spending the next 10 years pursuing something in your mind that is not going to be returned by being pursued. You need to accept it and go on with your life, and let your energy go somewhere that will actually give you a return. Now, let us do something with the thing itself. Close your eyes, if you can, and imagine a beautiful stream of water in front of you, a real one. Give it a bank and give it a sound. Let it be moving quickly. Now take the old, painful experience, the whole thing, the hurt, the incident, the unforgiveness, all of it, and let it become something you can hold in your hands and put it in the stream. Watch it hit the water. Watch the current take it. See it begin to break up almost immediately, the edges coming away, dissolving into the water, the pieces separating and moving apart. Watch it drift downstream, getting smaller, moving away from you. Watch it go round the bend, and now it is out of sight, and the water in front of you is clear again, and it is still moving. and it has been moving the whole time you were standing there holding that. Let it go. Let it dissolve completely. Let the stream carry it all the way out to sea. Say this with me now. I release you and I let you go. You are free and I am free. Once more, I release you and I let you go. You are free and I am free. Now open your eyes. And now the harder one, because the person you have been avoiding all this time may not be them at all. Here is something I have observed for a very long time. And it took me years to say it as directly as I am about to say it. The grudges and the hurts you are carrying have to do with forgiving yourself, not somebody else. Underneath the anger at them, there is nearly always a case being made against you. Why did I let that happen? Why did I stay? Why did I not say anything? Why did I not see it? Why did I go back? Why was I not the kind of child who was easy to love? Why did I not protect the person I should have protected? That is the door. That is the one this whole thing has been about. And it is why so many people can forgive the other person quite genuinely and still feel absolutely no lighter afterwards. Because the person they have actually been prosecuting all these years was never in the dock. So let us go there. I want to tell you about a woman who came to one of my seminars. She was elderly, and she was carrying an enormous amount of guilt about her son. He was an only child, and he had grown up to be a very withdrawn sort of man. And she was convinced this was her doing, because she had been extremely strict with him when he was young. And she said to me with such sadness, "It is such a shame that he is this way. And I am sorry I did such a bad job." Now, look at what she was doing. She was spending every bit of her energy feeling guilty about something she could not change. Not something difficult to change, something that had happened 40 years earlier and was completely finished. And that guilt did not help her son in any way at all. It did not reach him. It did not repair one single thing about his life. And it certainly did not help her. What I told her was that she had done the best she knew how to do at the time, which was true, and which is true of her and true of you. And I suggested that every time the feeling came up, rather than sitting down inside it, she say something like this: "No, I do not want to feel that anymore. I am willing to learn to love myself, and I accept my son exactly as he is." If she kept doing that, the pattern would begin to shift. Not immediately, but it would shift, because it always does when you stop feeding it. And here is the thing I most wanted her to understand, and I want you to understand it too. Her lesson was never to heal her son. Her lesson was to love herself. He came into this life to love himself, and she cannot do that for him, and he cannot do it for her. You cannot learn life on somebody else's behalf. You can only do your own. Now, let me say something plain about guilt, because it is treated as though it were a virtue, and it is not. Guilt is a very heavy burden, and it makes people feel inferior. That is what it does. That is its entire effect. It is another limitation, like all the others. It locks you out of your own good, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with the reality of who you are. Every time you indulge in it, you are putting up another wall around yourself. Now, if you have genuinely hurt somebody, then say so. Go and say it. And then stop doing the thing. That is what repair actually consists of. And it takes about 10 minutes, and then it is done. But walking around feeling guilty for years afterward does not repair anything. It does not make you a better person. It does not undo one moment of it. It only makes you a smaller person, and a smaller person is less use to everybody, including the person you hurt. And a great deal of the guilt people carry is not even about something they did. It is guilt they were handed. Some of it came from families where guilt was the way everybody was managed, so that you grew up apologizing constantly and never able to ask for anything outright. Some of it came from religion. I will say that gently, because for many people, faith is a great source of strength, and I would not take that from anybody. But Organized religion has often been extremely effective at making people feel guilty, particularly when they were young, in order to keep them in line. Well, we are not little children anymore. We do not need to be kept in line. We are adults, and we can decide what we want to believe. The child in us feels the guilt, but there is also an adult in us, and the adult can teach the child otherwise. That is your job now. Nobody else is going to do it. So here's what I would like you to do, and it is the same mirror used differently. Go and stand in front of it. Look at your own eyes if you can, and say your own name out loud. That alone does something that surprises people. Then say the actual thing you have been holding against yourself. Not the summary, the specific charge in the words you use when you are being cruelest. I have never forgiven you for staying. I have never forgiven you for what you said to her before she died. I have never forgiven you for the years you wasted. I have never forgiven you for not being able to stop it. Say it. And then, still looking, say this: I forgive you. You did the best you knew how with the awareness you had at the time. I forgive you and I love you. And then be quiet and listen to what argues, because something will say, no, you had a choice. Something will say, other people would have done better. Something will say, you do not get to let yourself off. Let it speak. And then say it again anyway. I forgive you. You did the best you knew how. Because here is the truth of it, and it is true of every single person listening to me. You did the best you knew how with the awareness you had. Nobody in the history of the world has ever done better than the awareness they had at the moment they acted. Not once. Not one person. You were not withholding a better version of yourself. If you had known then what you know now, you would have done it differently. And the fact that you would have is the proof that you did not know. That is not an excuse. That is simply what a human being is. And there is somebody in there who has been waiting a very long time to hear this from you specifically. When people begin this practice, something very young often answers. It says, where have you been all this time? I have been waiting for you to notice me. Waves of sadness may come, and that is because you have been rejecting that part of yourself for years, and it has been alone in there. It has been waiting to be told by the only person whose opinion it has ever really cared about that it was not their fault. So tell them today, if you can. Say these with me now, and go slowly. I forgive myself. I did the best I knew how. I love and approve of myself. Once more, and let it be true for however much of you can manage it. I forgive myself. I love and approve of myself. Now watch what happens to everything else once that door is open. Forgiveness was never the goal. I want to be clear about that now that we are near the end. Forgiveness is not a destination, and it is not a spiritual achievement to be collected. It is simply the thing that has been standing in front of everything else. Here is what I have observed, and it is so consistent that I now use it as a diagnostic. People who have trouble loving themselves are almost always people who are unwilling to forgive somebody. Those two things travel together. When somebody tells me they have been working on self-love for years and getting nowhere, I have learned to stop asking about self-love entirely and simply ask who they are refusing to release. And there is nearly always a name, and it is nearly always somebody they have decided is the one exception, the one who does not qualify, the one they will forgive when hell freezes over. And it is very often the person they most need to release, precisely because they have built the largest structure around them. So when you forgive and let go, two things happen at the same time, and they happen together every time. The first is that an enormous weight comes off. People say it in almost identical words. They say, oh, such a load has dropped off me, and of course it has. They have been carrying it forever and had long since stopped noticing they were carrying anything. And the second thing, which is the one that matters more, is that the doorway to your own self-love opens. Not because forgiveness earns it, because unforgiveness was holding it shut. That is the actual mechanism. You were not failing to love yourself. You were spending everything you had on maintaining a case, and there was nothing left over. Now let me put the time problem to you very simply. When you will not forgive, and you will not let go, you bind yourself to the past. And when you are stuck in the past, you cannot live in present time. You are not here. You are in a room from 1987 conducting a conversation with somebody who is not present. And if you are not living in the present, then how exactly do you propose to create a future? The present is the only workshop there is. Everything gets built here or it does not get built. Old rubbish from the past simply manufactures more rubbish for the future. It is not a moral statement. It is mechanical. Now, I want to say something about the body, and I want to say it carefully because I have seen this misused. Forgiveness appears to matter a great deal to physical health. Dr. John Harrison observed that forgiveness of the self and of the parents, together with the release of old hurts, does more for illness than people would ever expect from something so simple. And when somebody is unwell, it is always worth looking around to see who it is they need to forgive. In my experience, the very person you are certain you will never forgive is very often the one that matters most. But please hear me clearly. This is not instead of your doctor. Go and see your doctor, take the treatment, follow the plan you have been given. Medicine is very good at a great many things. This work sits alongside it, not in place of it. And anybody who tells you to choose is not being responsible with your life. Now, I want to tell you about a woman because it is a cautionary story and I think it belongs here. She had tumors removed more than once. And she had a resentment pattern that she had never dissolved, and she kept creating new growths. And I could see that she felt very self-righteous about her bitterness. She was entitled to it, she had earned it, and it was genuinely easier for her to let the doctor remove the latest growth than it was to do the work of forgiving. It would have been wonderful if she could have done both. Doctors are extremely good at removing things, but only we can address the reason they keep appearing. I do not tell you that to frighten anybody, and I want to be careful here because I would never suggest that anybody's illness is their fault. There is no blame in this, none. I tell you because there is a real thing that happens where a person would genuinely rather be right than be well, where the bitterness has become so much a part of them that letting it go feels like a greater loss than the illness. And if that is somewhere in you, even a little, it is worth knowing about, because you cannot choose differently about something you cannot see. Sometimes people would rather die than change their patterns, and sometimes they do. And even then, there is no blame in it, and no one has done anything wrong. Everybody is doing what they know how to do with what they understand. But you are here. You have listened this far, which most people do not, so you may as well find out what is on the other side of the door. Say these with me now. As I forgive, I set myself free. I release the past, and I move forward in love. And once more, I am free of the past, and I am safe. So let us finish by actually doing it, not talking about it any further. Doing it. Get comfortable, and let us do this together. Take a slow breath in and let it go. And another one, and as you breathe out, let your shoulders come down from around your ears where they have been living for a very long time. Let your jaw soften. Let your hands open, palms up if that feels right. There is nowhere you need to be for the next few minutes. Nothing is required of you here. Now bring one person to mind, one, not the whole list. There is time for the others, and today we are doing one. And I would gently suggest that you consider the one you were most certain you would never forgive. because in my experience, that is nearly always the one that matters most and the one that is costing you the most to maintain. See them not as a monster and not as a saint, just as a person standing at some distance from you, and you do not have to go any closer. Now say this with me, out loud if you can, and slowly. That situation is over. That is in the past now. I do not approve of what you did, and I understand that you were doing the best you could with the knowledge and the understanding that you had. I am done with this. I release you and I let you go. You are free and I am free. Now let them turn and let them walk away and let them go. You do not have to watch them out of sight if you do not wish to. And now the stream. See it in front of you again. Moving water, moving quickly. Take the whole thing. The incident, the years of carrying it, the 2 in the morning conversations, the unforgiveness, all of it. Gather it up and put it in the water. Watch the current. Take it. Watch it break apart at the edges. Watch it dissolve and separate and drift away downstream, smaller and smaller, and round the bend and out of sight, and let the water in front of you run clear. Now, stay with me, because there is one more. I would like you to see yourself standing in front of you, not as you are today, as you were then, at whatever age you were when this began. See what they were wearing. See how they were standing. Look at how young they were. Look at how little they knew. Look at what they were dealing with, entirely alone, with no help and no map and nobody to explain any of it. They did the best they knew how, with the awareness they had. Say their name, which is your name. Say it out loud, and then say this: I forgive you. You did the best you knew how. I am sorry it took me so long to say this to you. I forgive you, and I love you, and I am not leaving. And if something rises up in your throat now, let it. That is not a malfunction. That is something thawing that has been frozen for a very long time, and thawing is wet and uncomfortable and temporary. Let them come to you. Let them be held. There has been nobody there for a long while, and there is now. Take one more breath, and now let us finish. Bless everyone you have thought about today with love, all of them. The one you released and the one you have just held. Bless them, release them, and then simply dismiss the thought. Say these with me now, slowly. I am willing to free myself from the past. I forgive everyone who may ever have harmed me, and I forgive myself for having harmed others. I love and approve of myself. And this last one, which I would like you to carry out of here. All is well in my world. Once more, all is well in my world. Now open your eyes. You may feel lighter and you may not. Both are perfectly normal. Sometimes this lands quietly and you notice it 3 days later in a shop when a thought that used to hurt goes past and does nothing. And if it comes back, and it may, do not be discouraged and do not decide it failed. You are working in layers, and you cleared one today, and the next one only became visible because of what you did in the last 40 minutes. Come back and do it again, as many times as you need. There is no limit, and there is no schedule, and nobody is keeping score. You have been standing outside that door for a very long time. You just opened it, and so it is.
Click the first link in the description and watch the free healing presentation, where you will learn how to truly heal from the root and finally stop piecing your healing together in fragments. This will show you the complete path to heal fully, gently, and deeply from A to Z.